Hello, this is Allie with Perception Trainers, author of the Perception Diet, and today I have the Emotional Mastery Series Part 4.2 because we got a question and I really want to answer this before we move on to the exercises and the visualizations for your emotional mastery. Okay, so essentially I'm just paraphrasing here. The question that I got was along the lines of, after watching the last video where I essentially talked about the vision for the emotionally masterful life, where I talked about being in a state of complete acceptance and completion with what happened in your life so that you can live in alignment with reality right now. Essentially the question that I got was, are you saying that I should be okay with the terrible things that happen to me? That, there are really actually horrible things that I should have a right to feel upset about and not be okay with. And the second part of the question was, this really sounds totally different than all your other videos where you tell me to listen to my body and listen to my emotions and nurture my inner child that's hurting. And all this emotional mastery sounds like you're just, pretending like everything's fine and acting like everything's fine, and you should just feel like everything's fine when you don't. And basically I'm just like, okay, I'm so glad that you asked that question, and this is really important, and I'm very, very glad that I get to communicate this in a little bit of a better way. So first thing to understand is that this emotional mastery work is not a negation of every other thing that I've ever, presented to you on this channel, right? This is not, okay, now stop listening to your emotions, stop listening to your body, stop, embracing what you're actually feeling, stop embracing what you're actually thinking, and just get to a place where you accept everything, okay? That is not what I'm saying, okay? This is a continuation of this process, all right? So this is the very first most important thing that I want you to understand, is that in order to be emotionally masterful, and you're going to see this when you see the processes that I'm going to give you, okay? You are going to go through the phase where you finally allow yourself to feel everything that you feel about what happened to you, okay? Because like I say, most of us in society are at a place where we're not even allowing ourselves to feel the hurt, the anger, the pain, the sadness, the injustice of what happened to us, because we're in such a state of denial, right? So we're either trying to rush to be okay with it when we're really not yet actually authentically okay with it, right? We're trying to over-spiritualize it so we get to a place of just forgiveness where we're not actually at yet. Or we're just denying and saying we just shouldn't feel upset about it. We shouldn't feel that way. It isn't as bad as we're making it sound, da 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 da. Or we're in this third phase where we're kind of wallowing in our emotion about it and not allowing ourselves to move on, okay? So the absolute very beginning stages of emotional mastery are acknowledging what you actually feel, okay? So, and like I said, you're going to see this in the process. The very first stages is absolutely acknowledgement. This is not about pretending you don't feel how you feel, okay? This is about, first step, actually acknowledging how you feel. Absolutely, okay? That inner part of you. This is what I'm saying here. What we need to understand is that most of us are acting out in ways where our inner child that has been abused, that has been abandoned, remember everything comes down to this abandonment wound, the inner child that has been abandoned, that then slingshotted you into a state of fear about yourself and about the world, is running the show, okay? So all of your self-destructive behaviors, all of the, drama essentially that you create for yourself in your life, all of the addictions that we have going on, all of the knee-jerk reactions you have to life, everything that you have where you can't be okay with, someone else not being okay with you, or someone else judging you, or someone else saying things about you, or your perception of yourself not being the way that you're supposed to be, and you can't be happy until this, and that are different. That's all your inner child that has been abandoned running the show. So we first need to understand that yes, we need to acknowledge the emotions that are there, but the thing is, we got to understand that most people aren't actually acknowledging the actual emotions that have come from those trauma wounds, okay? What's happening is The emotions that cause those trauma wounds come up, and what we do is we run from them. Okay, so we go to our self-sabotaging behaviors. We go and we pick a fight with our spouse. We go and we eat. We go and we create drama in our lives that distracts us. We're not actually acknowledging the actual pain and the actual emotion of the thing, because we automatically, as soon as we start feeling a negative emotion, run to something. Okay, so this is the first part of the emotional mastery series, is that you start to look at those emotions and not act on them. Okay, there's a huge difference between denying that they're happening and not acting on them. Okay, so this is the most important thing to understand. The first things first. We're not denying the emotion. We're just not acting on the emotion. We're acknowledging that we're feeling something, and then we're going to go do a process where we can actually be with the emotion, okay? Because this leads us into step 2, when you can actually start to feel what you're actually upset about, to feel what actually is going on inside of you without projecting it onto your diet or your body or your relationship or this or that or this or that or what's happening to you currently, which is what most of us do. It's going to take you back, okay? By not acting on it, you don't create more drama in your day right here, right now, right? So it's going to help create space where you go back to actually find where that real wound happened. So you see what I'm saying here? The initial part is acknowledging how you feel, but in order to actually do that, in order to actually get to where you are at a point where you're even aware of how you actually feel, you can't act on it. Okay? You don't act on the emotion, you go be with the emotion. And then I'm going to give you tools in the next 2 videos of how to do that. Okay? So you're going to be with the emotion. You're going to actually be with the emotion. You're going to learn how to witness the emotion without acting on it, because what this does is it enables you to go deeper into the emotion so that you can say, okay, no, this really is a big painful thing around my mom, a big painful thing around my dad. It draws me back to this like kind of 1 or 2 or 3 fundamental memories that were really horrible for me. Okay, so it stops being about all this other stuff, right? This big, you think your whole life is this big, crazy, emotional mess, when really it's just about these 1 or 2 or 3 little emotional abandonment wounds that happened early in your childhood that you're going to go back to, okay? And then, like I say, the third step is you're going to start to be present with the emotions that arise. So you're going to allow yourself to actually be mad at your mom, to actually be mad at your dad, to actually be upset about what happened. You're going to allow yourself that process, okay? By creating that little bubble where you don't act on the emotion and therefore create more drama in your life today, you're going to go back to what actually happened so that you can actually be with the actual emotion, okay? So this is actual inner child work. Don't act on it. Go be with it. And then as you're with it, you're going to see what it actually is, where it actually came from. You're going to first acknowledge all the stuff that you wish had been different, all the stuff that you wish hadn't happened, all the stuff that you are very upset about. Yes, okay? You're going to acknowledge the trauma. Then, now this is the point where I want you to get how this is totally different than just denying an emotion, okay? After that, you're going to see that you have absolutely every right in the world to be hurt and to have trauma and to be in pain. You're going to see that emotional abandonment wound was absolutely real. And that really, at the end of the day, if you wanted to use that to justify you suffering for the rest of your life, you could. You have a good reason. And this is the thing that I want to get very clear here. Everybody on the planet right now has a good reason why they are suffering, why they have trauma, why they can't be okay with what's going on, why they are not all right within themselves, why they don't have emotional mastery, why they don't have peace, why they are not happy. Because the trauma that happened to you is real and it's legitimate. And you absolutely, like I said, can 100% use that as your reason to suffer for the rest of your life. And it would be totally legit. Okay? This is what I want you to understand. Is that when you get to this place where you've taken some time to really acknowledge that inner child and be with that inner child that is hurting, and be with that inner child that got abandoned, and be with all of that pain and everything that you wish hadn't happened, and just be mad at your mom and mad at your dad and mad at circumstances, mad at your teacher, mad at all the people that caused all this pain for you, and sad and angry and all of this stuff. You're going to let yourself go through that process, okay? And like I say, the emotional mastery work is allowing you to not act on the trigger as it's happening, which then creates more drama, okay? You're not going to act on it. You're going to go back in, go back in, go back in, so that you get back to these original woundings. And you're going to allow yourself to feel it, like I say, okay? And then you're going to come to a place where you realize that you not allowing yourself to get to a place where you can be okay with what happened to you simply means that you are going to suffer for the rest of your life. That's all this means. Okay, so again, it's not about reaching some spiritual place where you're okay with what happened to you, or where you're pretending that you're okay with what happened to you. It's not about that, okay? It's about getting to the place where you say, okay, now I see this trauma is what is literally running my life right now, right? This trauma is what drives me to avoid relationships. It's what drives me to do these self-destructive behaviors. It what drives me to do all of these things. It's what drives me to be afraid of the world and afraid of reality and, you know, getting lost in the whole, like, I'm going to try and only manifest good stuff and I'm afraid of all these bad things happening to me, and it's all the reason why I can't be happy, right? And you're going to get to that place where you're going to say, okay, look, at the end of the day, what this boils down to is I have a legitimate reason to suffer for the rest of my life. This trauma was real and it really happened and it really hurt. This abandonment wound really happened and it really hurt. But now, what's happening is that abandonment wound, that initial abandonment wound happened and it was for a few minutes. But what now is happening is you are carrying it forward and you are being re-wounded by that initial wound over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, because you won't let yourself complete with it. So what I'm saying here is that what you're going to realize is that it's not about justifying whether or not your pain and your suffering is legitimate, because it is. It's 100% legitimate. But now it's like, do you want to hold on to the justification of why you suffer, right? Or do you want to say, okay, no, I want to complete with this because I want to be happy? Because this is the thing. Life is never going to stop triggering you so long as you have a trauma. Life is always going to be a trigger so long as that trauma is there. And what you're going to discover is that that abandonment wound may have happened because of your mom or your dad or your teachers or your caregivers or your grandparents or whoever. But now, as an adult, as a conscious being who's doing this inner child, loving yourself work, re-parenting work, you are the only one now that has the authority to decide whether you're going to stop abandoning yourself and start accepting yourself exactly how you are right now. And then accepting life, because how you see yourself is exactly how you're going to see life. And how you see life is exactly how you see yourself. And this is just a truth, okay? When you get to a place where you realize that you are the only one that has the power to stop this cycle of abuse and abandonment that you're in now, right? You, like we say, we all understand the concept that usually people who were abused, right, are usually people who are abusers, almost 99.99% of the time. I think it's 100%. Every person who is abusive in the world was abused. And they took that abuse, they did not complete with it, right? It's still a trauma inside of them, and now they act it out. Okay, but the thing that we don't understand is that there are a whole bunch of people on the planet who didn't become outward abusers. We're now just inner abusers, right? We sabotage ourselves. We hurt ourselves, we berate ourselves, we abandon ourselves over and over and over and over and over again, because we're perpetuating that abuse, that abandonment, that trauma that happened to us when we were small. So this is what I'm saying. You're going to come to a place where you realize that while your parents may have abandoned you in the past, it may have been someone outside of you that abandoned you in the very beginning, What actually happened that caused the biggest trauma in you was you agreed to abandon yourself. You agreed that you were not good enough. You agreed that there was something wrong with you. And it's not your fault. Again, not your fault. You couldn't have known. This is the journey that we literally all go on. And it's painful, and it's horrible, and it's terrible, and it literally gives you absolute justification to suffer for the rest of your life if you want to hold on to that. However, what you're going to see is that now you have the power to say, even though they didn't like that about me, even though they abandoned me, even though they rejected me, even though they said that all this stuff was bad about me, I'm doing it to myself now. I'm the one that's carrying on that abuse now. I'm the one that's carrying on that cycle that says that I'm not good enough, and I'm not supposed to be this way, and I can't be this. I'm the one that's continuing to abandon myself. And you're going to realize that now that you see that, you have the power to choose to be okay with yourself. And when you choose to be okay with yourself, right? So you're going to go all the way back to that abandonment wound where you were abandoned. And you're going to be with the part of you that got abandoned. And you're going to bring that loving presence that you've never brought to yourself in that position, in that situation ever before. And you're going to complete with it. You're going to practice this loving presence. That's what these 2 videos that I'm going to give you next are. It's the loving, aware presence where you can be with the pain, be with the emotion, and not react to it. Bring that loving presence to the pain and the emotion to the point where you can bring the loving presence to that part of you that got abandoned by you. And you're going to complete with it. You're going to bring that part of you back into the light of your consciousness. And in that, you will complete with that painful, traumatic experience, because it will no longer be an abandonment wound for you, because you will no longer be abandoning yourself in that. And then the world will no longer trigger you, because the trauma will no longer be there. So it's not about pretending you're okay with the shitty thing that happened. You are going to go back and be okay with the one that it happened to. You are going to go back and love out of this world the one that got traumatized by that action, to the point where that part of you is no longer being rejected or abandoned by you, no longer being tried to fix. You're not trying to fix this part of you anymore. You're not trying to get rid of this part of you anymore. You're not trying to run away from this part of you anymore. You're not trying to fix the whole world so that you don't have to look at that part of you anymore, because that's what that is. When we're trying to fix our external reality so that we no longer are triggered, it's you trying to control your environment so you never have to look at that part of you that got abandoned, that got wounded, that got triggered, that got traumatized, right? And when you have finally completed with that part of yourself, the world will no longer be a triggering place for you. And it's really the difference between that. Do you want to be in a world where you are constantly triggered and running away from the triggers? Or do you want to be in a world where you no longer have the trauma to be triggered? That's what this is. So you won't pretend to be okay with what happened to you. You will arrive at a place where you have loved that part of you that was traumatized so deeply that it's no longer traumatized. Do you understand? And then you can still be not for the action that happened to you, obviously. But you're going to see that it gave you an opportunity to take this journey of deep self-acceptance, true self-acceptance, which is going all the way back to all those places where you abandoned yourself and you love the shit out of that one where that was abandoned by everyone else and by you, to the point where you no longer are abandoning yourself. You then come united consciousness. You become a united being inside yourself that is no longer traumatized by the world. And then the world will not be traumatizing. You will be able to be in your experience, whatever your experience is, without that trauma coding everything. And you deserve that. So your suffering is real, your suffering is legit. It's not about denying your suffering. It's first acknowledge all of it. Acknowledge all of it. Go into all of it. Blame everybody else. And then realize that you have the power to love and accept yourself back into the light. So that's what this is. I hope that's clear. And I will see you in the next video for the processes.